Hey everybody, Kneecap here. This is my boss guide for normal Helya in Trials of Valor raid. Again, this is for normal and looking for raid. Heroic and Mythic are going to have way more complicated mechanics than just normal and looking for raid. So we'll just go through the phases first, and then we'll go through an actual kill fight, the first kill fight that my guild had. In phase one, you're going to be facing Helya. Helya is going to be casting a breath ability on the tank and straight ahead of her. So the tank's going to want to tank her on 1/3 of the room, and then it's going to put a debuff on that tank. So another tank's going to have to do a taunt swap and pick up Helya. Generally, you're going to want to try to keep that in the same 1/3 of the room. Again, just kind of divide the room into thirds. Say this third is for the breath, and these 2/3 are free for the DPS and healers to run around in. After the breath, there's going to be some slimes that spawn, and those need to be killed right away. Not killing these slimes can result in a wipe of the raid. Also, the tanks need to not be standing too close to those walls on the side of the raid, or else slimes can actually spawn up on the platform. And again, it'll be hard to get to the slime. Not killing it could cause a wipe. Other abilities Helya has is the Taint of the Sea. That's going to be a debuff put on multiple people based upon the number of healers you have. That needs dispelled right away. It's doing raid damage. It does do damage when you dispel it, but that's much better than the damage that it's going to be doing constantly throughout the fight. So you want to dispel that right away. And one note is that one of the tanks will always get it, so you can dispel it off the tank. The tank with threat most likely is going to be the one that has it. You're going to dispel that off right away. And that was a way that we could kind of help our healers out by having one healer focus on that. Another ability is going to be a shadow orb that follows a certain target around. It's going to fixate on them, and you're going to want to kite that around the outside of the room, so along one side of the walls, and make sure you don't bring that through the raid. The raid, of course, needs to be paying attention and make sure that they're not standing in it as the person's kiting. The last ability we'll talk about is the tentacle ability that can spawn at the front or the back. You're going to need a handful of people to soak that ability. In the raid size we had, only 2 people could soak it and be fine. If one person soaked it, they would die. If nobody soaks tentacle ability, regardless of how big your raid is, that will be a wipe. So similar to not letting the slimes live, you can't let the tentacle hit the ground without hitting any players. Again, you're just going to want to have your tanks do a taunt swap, have 1/3 of the room for the breath, kill slimes, stand in tentacles, kite the orb of corruption or shadow orb, and just remove the Taint of the Sea. That's also going to put a little green swirly on the ground, and you're just not going to want to stand in that obviously as well. So if you can get those mechanics down, phase 1 is not too bad, and then at 65% health, you will transition into phase 2. During phase 2, there's going to be tentacles that pop up. If you remember from phase 1, there was a skull and moon on the ground. There's going to be 2 tentacles that spawn there, so right next to where Helya was. And so you can get those down right away if you're ranged. And there's going to be 3 tentacles in the back of the room, so you're going to want to get those down as well. Now you're going to have a Mariner, and you're going to have a Grime Lord. Mariner needs to go down first, or else he's going to have a very strong Lantern AoE ability, similar to the ability in Maw of Souls. So you're going to want to plow down the Lantern as fast as you can. Grime Lord, as you can see, has an AoE, so melee, watch out for that. Get the Grime Lord down, cleave on those tentacles in the back. And the Grime Lord is also going to put a Fetid Rot debuff on players. And for that, you simply need to make sure you're not standing next to anybody when the Fetid Rot runs off, or else it's just going to jump to another player. And this can be continuous. It's not something you can remove. It just needs to be managed by not standing in the group. These last miniature ads will come out, and those need to be stacked up and AoE down. You're going to want to try to kill them on the steps if you can. As you can see, we kind of let them get up on the steps a little bit too much, but kill them down below as much as you possibly can. And there's going to be more tentacles on the top of each of these platforms. So you had the 5 at the bottom, then you're going to have a handful, or just a couple really, on top of each platform. So while this is going on, there's going to be waves crashing you, as you can see. These waves on normal mode don't do a ton of damage, so they're not really that important. It's easy to heal through, and the damage doesn't stack on normal either. But as this is happening, you're going to have more and more of these Grime Lords and Mariners come out. So the same thing, focus down the Mariner, then get down the Grime Lord, then you're going to have more little ads come out. So you're going to do the same thing. So the second time, you're going to bring the little ads to the other platform, and you're going to get down those little ads again. the waves actually wash off the corruption that the little ads drop on the ground there. So that's also why it's kind of nice to kill them down below further, because the water will then wash the corruption away. If as long as you are, the main things to avoid here are fetid rot. Make sure that's not continually jumping constantly. Make sure that's especially not affecting the whole raid. If the whole raid gets that can be a problem. Try to group up the little guys, kill them as fast as you can without standing in the corruption stuff too much. And then also make sure you get the Mariner down ASAP. An important thing is to have a smooth transition here between phase 2 and phase 3, especially when you're kind of new to it. So you're going to want to get these tentacles down at a good time. So between the next Mariner coming out, Mariner and Grimelord coming out, you're going to want to get these tentacles finished off. So that way you can have a smooth transition into phase 3. That'll help you out a ton, because you don't want to have extra stuff up in phase 3 if you don't have to. So after you get all the tentacles down, we're going to have phase 3. Phase 3 is basically just a combination of phase 1 and phase 2. So you're going to have everything from phase 1, except for now instead of shadow, it's like a corruption orb, and instead of the watery breath, it's more of a corruption breath. But it's basically the same exact thing, the same exact mechanics. So you're going to have to run the orbs out on the outside, same as phase 1, except for they're going to leave corruption on the ground, and you can't stand in that, obviously. Now you're also going to get Fury of the Maw, and you're going to get Mariners in this phase 3 as well. So Fury of the Maw is the wave ability we talked about earlier, and that's going to come down. That'll wash away the corruption just like normal. You're also going to get the small ads as well as the Mariner. So you're going to want to get the Mariner now, and then you'll get the small ads. You're going to want to group them up and kill them again, because again, you're going to leave corruption. This can get a little bit crowded on the ground with all the corruption from the orbs and from the little ads. If you can kill the little ads closer to the back, great. If not, you just got to really watch where you're walking. There's not a ton of one-shottable damage going on here because you don't have the slimes to kill from phase 1, and you do not have the tentacle to group up for from phase 1. So as long as you're doing the mechanics correctly, phase 3 can actually be quite simple. So it's basically just not standing in things and being smart about placement of things. That's mainly what phase 3 is about. You do still have Tainted of the Sea, which needs to be dispelled, and you still have again the same breath type ability from phase 1. So you're going to want to kind of do the same exact thing in phase 1, have 1/3 of the room for the breath, except for this time you don't have to worry about the slimes coming out afterwards. Fury of the Maw is your best friend here because that's going to actually be able to clear all this corruption off the ground. As you can see, it can get to be quite a lot of corruption on the ground, and it's very easy to be overwhelmed by that. You won't be able to wait for Fury of the Maw. You'll find yourself saying, hey, come on, we need some waves to clear this out, especially when you're new at this. So again, phase 3 is just kind of a rinse and repeat of phase 1 with Mariner and little ads. It's the same thing. It's arguably easier than phase 1 once you understand the mechanics, just because of the fact that you don't have those one-shot abilities. So everyone just needs to be paying attention to mechanics, and other than that, that's about it, all you need to know for phase 3. And now we'll kind of just go commentary of our kill. And I'll take this time to point out, as I try to point out often, but probably not often enough, that my guild is a casual guild. We all have real lives. Some of us have wives, children, college, important, serious jobs, and we don't have time to play all the time. I play all the time, but not everybody in the guild has enough time to play all the time. And that's important to know that you can still raid while you have a real life or have other commitments, and you can't divulge your whole life into it. And that's really why I do these videos, is to kind of show that. So what we have kind of here is phase 1 again. As you can see, we just are dispelling these Taint of the Seas as fast as we can. We found that was probably the biggest damage doer in phase 1, at least for our group. I kind of mentioned this, but the tank will always get Taint of the Sea. So if you can actually have one healer assigned to that, it's going to make it easy. If you actually have an even smaller group with only 2, and you only have 2 healers, that makes it really easy because one has tank dispel, one has other dispel. We actually have 3 healers with a small group, which isn't ideal. So the healers are kind of fighting over who to dispel a little bit. But if you can kind of get dispels down to where it's as soon as they are on, they're being taken off, that really negates a lot of the damage from phase one, and you are able to basically kind of coast through phase one in that way. As long as, again, you want to get the slimes down, you can kind of see a better close up of the slimes here on the screen. Get the slimes down and make sure you're second for the tentacle, which you also get a nice chance to see right there. If you can do those things, stay relatively spread out. It stinks for, like, phase one stinks a lot for me as a holy paladin because I'm not, I can't, my AoE heal is pretty much useless because there's no one grouped up at all to use my Light of Dawn. So obviously, in a perfect world, I would respect before this fight. But so I just pretty much have to just spot heal up everybody and try to keep the tanks up, of course. Other than that, our method is we actually used a method of tanking a taunt swap on the tanks. One's on Skull, one's on Moon. I don't advise that. I advise kind of just always keeping the boss facing the same direction, so that way your DPS aren't confused, and it's just generally easier. Your melee don't have to move around either that way. So your tank would be, one tank would be on Skull, one tank would just be in the middle with the melee DPS. After the breath goes off, the tanks would just kind of switch positions. So the tank that was just DPSing in the center or on the right side, whichever, or left side, would just switch to where the main tank was, and then the old main tank will go over to where the off tank was. That's probably the best way to do it. At least that's the best way for our group, but you can mix and match with that. You'll see us transition to phase two here. You could get a tentacle slap right like that right at the end of phase two, so just be careful for that. Make sure you're still dealing with any mechanics that are still up. That first wave there, if you're not careful, especially if you're a melee, that can actually knock you off the edge of the map there. You can get back up, but it can be a little bit rough. So you're going to make sure you're not getting pushed off the map by that first wave. As I said, the Mariner that casts Lantern needs to go down first. They don't have a lot of health, so as you can see, it dies really quick, especially on normal mode, kind of cleaving down the tentacles. We actually had our ranged killing the other tentacles that spawn next to where Helya stands. So those were actually already dead, and that helped a lot because we were, for whatever reason, having trouble gathering up these little lads and getting them down. This probably won't be something that you have a lot of trouble with, especially if you have strong AoE DPS. We typically do, but for whatever reason, we were having a little bit of trouble getting these down in time. So yeah, so but you're going to want to make sure you try to kill these down as low as you can. We do a much better job here than we did in some of the earlier attempts in the video. So we killed them a little bit lower. We had a little bit of room to stand up here. There's still some stragglers hanging on, but as you can see, much better job overall. I actually have room to stand up here on this platform, which helps a lot. Not as much unnecessary damage as well. So you see with that final wave, a boat comes, and you're going to have a Mariner and a Grime Lord. Grime Lord's actually going to like death grip basically, or chain pull somebody to them, and hopefully it's a tank. If not, that's not a huge deal. Just make sure you run away. You're going to kill the Mariner, and the Grime Lord's going to be on the other side here, and you're going to get him down. Again, as quick as you can. Make sure you try not to stand in any of his AoE abilities. He has an anchor ability as well that can hit as an AoE. You're just going to make sure that only the tank is standing in that, if at all, and run out of it if you can. So you're going to gather up the small lads again. Again, on normal, this stuff isn't going to just like one-shot you by any means. You do have a chance to run through it. That's fine. You don't want to stand in it by any means, but you can run through it without having to worry too much, as long as your healers are capable and knowing what's going on. So as we get up here, we just have these last two tentacles left, so we're pretty confident that we're going to have a very smooth transition into phase 3 because of that. So we get these last tentacles down, and we are ready for phase 3. At this point, we save hero for phase 3, so at that point is when we pop heroism. As you can see, a nice clean transition. We don't have a Grime Lord up, which is nice. That's a lot less stuff to worry about. So now you're not going to have to worry about anything until the Mariner comes with the first Fury of the Maw. So there's the poison orbs. For whatever reason, I think because they're putting stuff on the ground, these seem a lot harder than the shadow orbs. So they do about the same amount of damage. It's just the fact that they put stuff all over the ground. You want to keep dispelling from same as phase one. It's just very similar to phase one, except for just for whatever reason I just find it to be a little bit easier. Yeah, maybe that's because, as long as you are capable of not standing in things, I think that's why you might find it to be easier than phase one even. And of course, you kind of have that practice from phase one already before coming into this phase. As you see, the ground's really stacking up. We didn't necessarily kite the orbs in the best possible manner, to be completely honest, and our ground became extremely cluttered, and you just have to be careful. I mean, if as long as you have, as long as you can see the ground and see where you can and can't stand, you should be pretty good. You can stand pretty much right next to it. The game's pretty darn accurate with that. So I was actually able to stand just literally right between some of these patches and be fine. You see there's just a little sliver right there, and I just stand right there and I'm perfectly fine. No damage whatsoever. So it even kind of looks like one of my feet, or it might even be touching it a little bit. So it gives you a little bit of leeway there, as you can see. And it's just going to be rinse and repeat from phase one. We actually have two of our shadow priests, actually, both of our shadow priests, I should say, they actually died from using their STM. I think that was the initials for it, too early. So that was actually their death on the logs. But we did have a couple of other deaths that were battle res from not doing mechanics properly. But it was overall a very clean fight. It was by far our cleanest attempt, and of course we got it down this attempt as well. So if you can do mechanics clean, you're probably going to get this down. This is by no way a DPS race at all. It's just about doing the mechanics and knowing the mechanics. And once again, if you are just casual, if you're doing this and looking for raid, you can use this as a guideline. But if you're just a casual raider trying to do this on normal, this just again to show you that this is just a ragtag group of people. More than half this raid isn't on all day, isn't farming everything, reading every little aspect of the fight. A lot of them are learning as we go. It's not ideal, granted, but you can do it this way and still be successful. As long as you kind of know how to play your class, that's all you really need to know. And as we finish off this last little rinse and repeat here, I'm going to get the Fury of the Maw to clear off the poison off the ground. One last Mariner. And at this point, we're just focusing Helya down. We're just kind of excited to get her done. But that's it for this video, guys. Thumbs up and sub, and everyone have a great day.